This concept quickly. If anyone in this room is looking for an instructor, a drill instructor, a sergeant or lieutenant to get you through this academy, get up and get out now. It's not going to happen. I'm not here to get you through the academy. That's not my function. It's not my job. My job is to place obstacles in front of you. It's your job to develop a process and how to get through those obstacles and move forward. My job is to make things uncomfortable. Discomfort promotes change, promotes better habits. From there, it's up to you whether you develop the self-discipline to sustain those habits moving forward. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
If you're looking from the outside, for outside factors to get you through this academy, do not come back on the 8th. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Hello, and welcome to a long overdue episode of F.I.D.O Talk with Dave Thompson. Today's episode, I'd like to dive into this term, toxic leadership, or a toxic leader. What I'd like to do is break down some of the background in research on what a toxic leader is, the modern day definitions, historically what different leaders and basically what history has taught us about this particular term and subject. And then as we go along, I'd like to break down some characteristics and kind of share my thoughts on what a toxic leader and how we can navigate through that through my own personal experience. And again, I've said this a ton. It's what I'm sharing with people, and what I'm sharing is just the experiences. It's through my lens. It's through my eyes and how I see things. It's not the way, as we all have to develop our own process and come up with our own way. It's just a way. I would like to think that the process that I've been through and the things that brought me to my mindset and my approach have been researched a bit. The lessons have been learned and applied, and that for somebody like me or somebody with similar experiences, career fields, and work environments, that maybe this way of thinking, maybe this approach will be helpful in you guys developing your own approaches and your own systems and your own mindsets of dealing with complex situations. One thing I'd like to start off with, and I know I've touched on this before, but in reading some of the books I've recently read, one common theme when it comes to leadership is leadership in its pure form, as it stands on its own. It is simple. The approaches to leadership, the ways in which we deal with things are simple. Now, a lot of people equate simplicity with being easy, with being uncomplicated and easy. And that's just not the case. They're not mutually exclusive. Which makes things a challenge is dealing with the human beings. It's dealing with the human element. There are so many variables in dealing with human beings that it never will be easy. It never will be simple as far as the actual execution of the simple principles, if that makes sense. Not trying to jumble or complicate things. That's the way it is. The approaches are simple. The execution is where the difficulties come in, where the challenges arise. And as we progress through leadership and dealing with people in situations, those lessons turn into experience, that turn into applying different approaches in the proper place and time. So going through all that, let's dive into toxic leadership. So one thing I've come up with is about a paragraph long about what a toxic leader is. A toxic leader is someone who exhibits destructive behaviors and qualities that have a detrimental impact on their followers in the overall organization or environments. Leaders often prioritize their own interest in personal power over the well-being and success of their subordinates and the team as a whole. I think that is a pretty basic definition of what someone who exhibits toxic leadership traits. Someone whose self-interests are prioritized above the team's overall goal, objectives, missions, mission statements, and that kind of thing. It's someone who possesses an ego, someone who has chosen not to develop a big picture mindset, someone who insists on continually playing small ball, putting out fires from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., closing up shop, and that's the day. As long as their ass is covered, as long as their work's done, everything's good. So let's dive into some characteristics, some traits, and some behaviors that a toxic leader may possess. One caveat to this is I personally don't think that every bad or ineffective leader is toxic. I think that's kind of an overused term. I think people can possess some toxic traits and just not be ineffective for a bunch of other reasons, right? They don't have the skill sets, they don't have the competencies, they don't have the technical experience. I mean, there's a bunch of variables that make someone ineffective. It's not just being toxic. I think that is an overused term. So to start with, there's people who will like to employ bully tactics, abusive behavior. And that's abusive power or abusive status, an abusive appointed position. Now, they can be a little overly aggressive. Their approach, not the only, but one of their biggest go-tos is to demean people, is to belittle someone's behavior or actions. usually towards subordinates, people they see as them having power over rather than being an equal within the teams, right? The insults, threats, intimidations, if that's what you have, if that's your skill set to maintain some type of control within your teams, I mean, you're short-sighted and you are way behind the curve. Every day is going to be a very difficult day if you are that person, right? Who uses insulting behavior, threats, or trying to intimidate someone. That's not sustainable. Eventually, you're going to run into someone who's not going to be intimidated, and you're going to get checked. And then what? Then what do you do? Right? That's not sustainable. One thing I've learned, and this was through a block of training, was the instructor. He summed it up very well, in my opinion. At no time should we ever ask anyone to put their dignity in their back pocket. And I think that's perfect, right? We should never, on any level, at any time, at no time is it appropriate to ask someone to put their dignity in their back pocket. No way, no how. I'm sorry. That's a line that I draw that should never happen. We praise in public, punish in private, and use those lessons just as they are, as lessons, not as punitive punishment or anything like that. That's not to say that we don't hold people accountable. We can certainly do that. We can certainly hold people accountable without being demeaning, intimidating, or ask them to put their dignity in their back pocket. There's definitely a method to make that happen. One of the other points here is a lack of empathy in emotional intelligence. Toxic leaders typically show little empathy or concern for feelings and the needs of others. They may disregard emotional impact of their actions, decisions, and leading to a hostile and unsupportive work environment. One thing with this, there seems to be a trend towards empathy, and I think this is another overused term. Empathy implies a lot of emotion. And through my experience, emotion tends to lead to irrational decision making. If we instead concentrate on perspective, if we have less emotion, if someone in our charge makes a mistake or makes a poor decision, having empathy, again, in my opinion, means that we would tend to feel badly for them. We tend to side on the pity end of things. Whereas if we took a perspective that maybe took a look at that person's experience, their skill set, their ability level, their training, their past examples, and try to identify where some of those shortfalls may come from, that's a little more analytical, right? Less emotion. From there, then we can maybe start building some effective solutions for that person, and in turn develop a stronger person and develop the team as a whole, a stronger team. And with that person who is developing and becoming more effective, that only betters everybody. And, on the self-fulfilling side, that it gives you a chance to sharpen your leadership skill set. It's a win all around. So as far as empathy goes, I'm a little bit torn with empathy. The past is the past. The past is where it belongs. I believe that where we are now is definitely the sum of where we were. But where we are now is a culmination of emotionless outcomes, right? So that's my little 2 cents on empathy. As an effective leader, you definitely should have some understanding of the background of the people in your charge, of your subordinates. You have to have a good assessment of where they come from, what skill sets they bring with them, maybe have an idea of some of the examples they had to follow, and identify the strengths and the shortfalls in order to mold a better team from there, right? Another point here is micromanagement, which, again, in my opinion, my humble little opinion here, that equates to a lack of trust. Micromanaging your subordinates, displaying a lack of trust in their abilities, constantly scrutinizing and trying to maintain control over every aspect of your subordinates' work, that is ineffective. I mean, right off the rip, it's ineffective. That also shows some holes in your vetting process. That shows some holes in your training. That shows some holes in your ability to develop a skill set within the individuals and the skill set of your team as a whole. The micromanagement has always proven to be incredibly ineffective. As we ascend, or as people ascend and move up in the ranks, their responsibilities become greater. Their workload becomes more. If they or somebody decides to micromanage and then just add more to their plate, well, humans tend to take the path of least resistance. So if I'm doing more in micromanaging somebody on all the hows, all the how-tos of whatever tasks, objectives, and goals of the organization, of the teams, then me as the subordinate, I would tend to sit back and go, okay, well, I'll do what I have to do to get by, but I'm going to be micromanaged. Somebody's going to keep checking over me and telling me how to do things. All I have to do is follow the simple direction, and good, I'm good, right? Nobody will develop. no innovation will be instilled. There will be no creative thinking, no reflexive thinking, no desire to improve on decision making and critical thinking. I, as a leader or influential teammate, I just don't have or choose not to have the time to micromanage somebody. Trusting that my intent was communicated properly and the why, as far as why we have to take on the task, or what the objective is, and getting feedback and ensuring that everyone understands what page we're on. The how is no longer up to me. The how is strictly on the shoulders of the boots on the ground. How they get there is up to them. As a leader, a supervisor, whatever term you want to use, if I'm signing off on their plan, if I'm getting a back brief and a plan from them, and as long as it's within the left and right limits of whatever organizational policies, rules, regulations, techniques, tactics, and procedures, as long as it's within those left and right limits, let them go. Let them go. If it's not the way I would personally attack a problem or my method, that doesn't matter. Even if I think that it's not going to be effective in the short term, it's certainly an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity for the subordinates, for my team, to learn something, to gain valuable lesson. They take that, they hit that task again with more experience and a different approach, maybe a more effective approach. Without that, they stay stagnant. That's no good. In my opinion, that's not effective in developing an effective and productive, successful team. Again, just one man's opinion here, right? To constantly scrutinize someone, they're going to turn a deaf ear to you. When people are constantly bombarded with negativity and why this and why that and do this and do it this way and no, you suck and all the you suck speeches and all that kind of thing, you're going to get tuned out. The people, the team will tune you out. Your words will have zero effect. They will have zero meaning. They will be absolutely a shell, and people will see right through that. It's a terribly ineffective approach. Terribly ineffective. And as we just hit on, poor communication and transparency. Failing to communicate openly and honestly, withholding information, making promises they don't keep, or trying to manipulate communication to maintain their power and control. Being open and honest. That, again, doesn't mean in a public forum or in front of anyone else that you use honesty or transparency as a crutch to demean somebody, right? That's just me. I'm honest, man. I'm honest. What you get, what you see, what you get. I'm me, and that's that. No, that's you being a douche and hiding behind honor and honesty and transparency. That's you just being a douche canoe. That's what that is, right? You can still be honest. You can be transparent, but be a noble, honorable adult and have that conversation one-on-one. That, by doing it in an open forum, you're exposing your fear. You're exposing your fear to have those difficult conversations. And it surely is a way of calling someone out. You're doing it in a more dignified manner, You're not doing it in an open forum. You're not calling people out. Even if you give that big speech, that sucks, you suck speech, and this better not happen, without using names, everyone in that group knows what's going on. There's no need to insult anyone's intelligence. People know what's going on. If something ineffective happened or there was a failure somewhere, people know. People talk. That's what happens within organizations, within teams. Everyone already knows who screwed up or where the fuck up came from. Everyone already knows. Take care of it on a one-on-one situation, right? Making promises that you don't keep. To get a little philosophical here, that just means you aren't leading yourself properly. You're not taking care of yourself. If you haven't learned how to make and keep promises to yourself, you haven't developed yourself on a personal level. And one of our premises here at Bare Bones is lead self daily. That includes making promises to yourself. And that could be anything, right? That could be anything on any level: personal, professional, spiritual, mind, body, spirit, whatever it might be. And if it's, I promise, or I'm going to run 3 times a week, and you don't keep that commitment to yourself, there's no way in hell you're standing in front of the team, an organization, a department, a division, or anything, and as an appointed leader or influential leader, an assumed leader, you are not standing in front of anyone making a promise and keeping that commitment. Not until you learn how to do that consistently with yourself. That's what it is. That's absolutely 100% what it is. It's just something to think about when we talk about leadership. Because we could be toxic leaders to ourselves too, right? We could be bullshitting ourselves. We lie. The biggest lies we tell are the ones we tell ourselves. If we're not honest with ourselves and start there and develop those honest, transparent habits, communicate well, keep promises. If we can't do that to us, with ourselves, within us, there's no way in hell that's going to translate into dealing with other human beings, because they'll see right through that. 100%. At some point, sometime, it might be short-term success. Long-term, sustainable success won't be there. It won't be there. Favoritism. Toxic leaders may play favorites and engage in manipulative tactics to maintain loyalty and support from certain individuals within the group. This behavior can lead to a divisive and unfair environment. One thing I will like to touch on real quick on this one is I would like to get rid of fairness. Life's unfair. Everything's unfair. There is no fairness. There is no balance. There is no equity. There just isn't. It's unnatural. No matter how hard we want to believe that we can achieve balance, and that's the end game though, right? The yin and the yang, the work-life balance, which is bullshit. If you want to develop and ascend and move up, there's a sacrifice somewhere that has to be made. We have 24 hours in the day. Everyone gets that. People use that time in a very unbalanced way, depending upon their objectives, their personal goals, their aspirations, their dreams, all those things. The teams won't be fair. It won't be. Now, that's not to say that a system isn't developed based on your work, right? Just based on your performance-based incentives, performance-based evaluations, and those kind of incentives are definitely where it's at. Manipulative tactics, everything's a manipulation. We've been manipulated since day one, whether it's from our family environment all the way up. It's what we choose to believe based on our experiences, what we've learned, what we've chosen to put our beliefs in. Everything at the end of the day is a manipulation. It's what endears you to one philosophy or another. That's what it comes down to. Now, playing favorites and being overly close to subordinates, that's a problem, no doubt. That's an issue, right? Being professional, being a pro at all times can require you to hold people accountable, and people you may genuinely like or genuinely get along with or on the same wavelength as. And that it shouldn't be a problem. Sometimes it is, especially if the subordinate feels as though, he's got it better than other people because, you share a lot of the same interests as the boss or the supervisor, the leader, right? Playing favoritism, it's ineffective, right? Everyone takes a piece of the shit sandwich when that's served, right? When we're given tasks that, whether it's we feel as a team is beneath us, is beneath our status, or beneath our beneath us as veterans of whatever division or the senior people. No, everyone contributes, right? And if you're the new guy and maybe the older guy doesn't have to do as much, well, the chances are he's done more than his share. So, yeah, that's going to be a little unequal and maybe in some people's eyes a little unfair. It's really not, right? Everything comes out in the wash, right? We're going to try to shoot for equality. That's the end game, but it's not going to happen. That's the reality. Not in nature and in a natural sense, because we're human beings, we're animals, subset mammals, subset human, right? So nothing in nature is balanced, and to expect that is nuts. In my opinion, it's just nuts. So one of the next characteristics is the lack of accountability, right? And this we hear and we see all the time. It's we're responsible, right? At the end of the day, the responsibility is for everybody. Responsibility is for everybody. We tend to see the blame game, and this is incredibly prevalent, at least in my world, the blame game, right? The blame game is probably one of the biggest time wasters and the most ineffective approaches to anything. At the end of the day, no one's going to change it, right? We can blame whoever we want. At the end of the day, if I'm in charge or I have a particular task or objective that I am running, that it's my show, everything is my responsibility. People waking up late, coming in late, whatever. People not being ready, prepared, anything. All of it is my responsibility across the board. As effective and influential team members, on some level, you shoulder a level of responsibility for whatever the team is doing or not doing. The responsibility is everybody's. The total responsibility, the end game, is that leader, is that person in charge, the top dog. Anything and everything that happens, doesn't happen, should have happened, should not have happened, that is all on his or her shoulders. And that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That is one thing that is hard-lined. That a lack of accountability for your decisions, right? Whether effective or ineffective or indifferent. The deflection of criticism, again, that is a missed opportunity for growing. If you play the blame game, you're missing a huge opportunity in growing and identifying things, driving training. Those are taking responsibility, taking accountability, opens up opportunities to develop better training, to embrace those lessons, and then to apply different tactics or different ways to approach whatever task or objective that we're working on and get better. That whole idea of not acknowledging failures and it certainly stifles your ability to grow trust within the teams, within whatever division you're working in, or however your organization is structured, right? You'll be ineffective in building trust and certainly credibility. That leads to people looking elsewhere. So maybe the loyalty erodes as well. That's never good, right? That's certainly never good. If you're playing the blame game, you're not showing loyalty. You'll never get loyalty. Or whatever loyalty you had will deteriorate. That equates to lowering morale, right? The lack of vision and inspiration. When we decide to not communicate our intent and where we're coming from, and to make sure everyone understands why, right? So that's our lack, or excuse me, that is our projecting what we see. That's our vision. Hey guys, this is what we're doing. This is what has come down, and this is what I see as far as my intent. I would like us to hit these tasks, which will make us, achieve this objective. And this is why, right? Getting everyone on the same page with where you see the team going promotes buy-in, right? We need to develop a stronger TAC team. To do that, we're going to do some hip pocket training. We're going to do some extra training during these hours. And this will help us A, B, and C. Who can help me with the plan? Who's got some ideas, right? Get some feedback. Get everyone on the same page. And if they don't love it, that's fine too. At the very least, they understand that we have to do it, we're going to do it, and the reasons why, right? And that just might be, hey, okay, I have to eat this small shit sandwich in order to, move on to the next objective where I might have more buy-in, or it might be more up my alley on a personal level. And that's just some of the sacrifices you have to make with team building, right? But you have to engage with the team. You have to engage with the human beings on a individual level. By not having a vision, by just looking at the papers and the orders and the directives and regurgitating them, there's not much of a buy-in, right? There won't be much of a buy-in. It'll just be, okay, yep, check this box and move on. How many times have we done that? We get a packet with 3 or 4 pages of boxes to be checked, and that's it. We'll call it done. We call it training, right? That's huge in training. We check the box and we consider people trained. Okay. Yep. See you next year at whatever in-service or annual training that we need to recheck these boxes. But in the meantime, in between those 12 months, have we developed anything? I mean, have we really sharpened our skills at anything? Have we really prepared us for the worst case scenario? And that's what drives training, right? The worst case scenario. Whether it's, first responders in life and death situations, or corporate people where huge crashes and large sums of money and capital or whatever's at stake could be lost. And we do nothing but check boxes. And then we do our day-to-day, our mundane shit, and then we're just playing the odds. And we, people might go their whole careers without being faced with that. And then some days you won't. And then what? We keep checking the boxes, right? We take the easy path. That's what we do. We're human beings. That's what we do. And people will fall into that. And that should be expected. You should expect that from your teams. That happens. That happens. Resistance to feedback and growth. A lot of people in appointed positions have egos. It's very difficult to navigate that because as people who might have a background in A-type personality environments, alpha environments, it's very, very difficult to accept that there is a different way or a more effective way or a more efficient way other than your way. Feedback is great because things evolve. Everything evolves. Nothing really stays stagnant. If, as far as work environments, right, the things happen. Outside factors change. Even new employees, generational things, backgrounds. People come in with different ideas, different mindsets, different work ethics. Everything's changing and evolving. Nothing is staying static. So if you're stuck in one particular era and are resistant to feedback, you're going to get left behind, right? That you're going to be left behind. It's not a challenge to your authority or a personal attack. It can be taken as somebody trying to grow and develop their team from their station within the team, to question whatever TTPs, right? Techniques, tactics, procedures, policies, and those type of things. For me, I can only speak for me. I would encourage everyone to question everything. Now, there's a way to do that, right? There's no such thing as a dumb question. There's no such thing as, stupid questions. However, in my opinion, there's a time and a place for those questions. In the middle of executing a task or an objective probably isn't the most effective time to question things, right? The lack of after action reviews or debriefs is detrimental in my opinion. I think that's one of the most underrated, undervalued, and underused tools that you have in leadership, right? Back briefs, one-on-ones, debriefs. Those things really drive everything. It's the equivalent of pulling back a bowstring, right? To revisit that particular task or objective or mission, whatever. You revisit it, and as you let that arrow go, you train, you address the shortcomings, maintain the quality things that you've done, and as that arrow exits, you move forward. And that's, in my opinion, the beauty of feedback. People do tend to refuse to listen to that, right? And they dismiss the constructive criticism for whatever reason. Maybe they don't value somebody's background or someone's experience, that no one could ever have as much experience and gone through what I've gone through with the lessons that I've learned, and so forth and so on. And that's fucking asinine. It really is. The value, everybody, I truly believe this. Everybody brings something of value to the table. Everybody. It doesn't always equate to somebody being an effective team member. Let's face it. If you're not taking lessons from the shitbags on what not to do, you're missing out on a whole realm of lessons. Even the shitbags provide positive lessons on how not to conduct yourself, how not to present yourself, how not to approach your day or your tasks. It is what it is. You can gauge the tolerance of your team, of your division, your organization, by how much they're willing to put up with as far as shitbags go. And where you would like to fall within that realm. Right? Everything's a choice. At the end of the day, everything's a choice. So the presence of a toxic leader, ineffective leader, can lead to various negative consequences. Decreased productivity, increased turnovers within the team, low morale, a terrible work culture. It is imperative to identify and address toxic leadership or ineffective leadership. And we all would love a healthy and supportive environment. As individuals, though, unless you're the top dog, because at the end of the day, environments are a direct reflection of the top dog's personal principles and values. That's it. The history has proven that fact is accurate. The top dog's responsible for the environment, the culture within the organization. That's it, right? As individuals, as frontline leaders, influential teammates, mid-level and higher level leaders, we or you have no control over how somebody decides to approach their position, right? You can state your case, right? Hey, big guy, I don't think this is a good idea, and this is why. You might get told to go fuck your fist. All right, got it, Roger. Yep, F.I.D.O, right? Fuck it, drive on. And that's that. Does that mean that you jump in that boat and start adopting those ineffective, quote-unquote, toxic traits? Not if you want to continue to be an effective leader or have any kind of positive influence within the teams. You stay and stand by your values and principles. Your character will dictate how you treat others. everyone knows the golden rule. Treat others the way you would like to be treated. That's a great start, right? That's a great start. Lead self and treat others the way you would like to be treated. So one of the biggest takeaways from this almost hour-long diatribe I kind of went on today is ineffective leaders, or in today's terms, toxic leadership, is alive and well. It's everywhere. We've identified some characteristics. At the end of the day, again, a simple approach to stay away from that is A, lead self daily. Learn to make promises to yourself and keep them. Promises in mind, body, and spirit, right? And then treat others the way you would like to be treated. And finally, set the example. Be what you would like those toxic leaders, those ineffective leaders to be. And if you have had those effective leaders, those very inspirational leaders, be that. Be what you need a leader to be. Be that. Set that example. That can be set from the bottom up, from the top down, and anywhere in between. Those are in my opinion, are great first steps. Right? Again, leadership, the principles are simple. The application of those principles to human beings is very difficult. It's complex because human beings are complex. All right, I rambled on enough. I appreciate your time. We'll see you guys on the next one. I want to thank everyone for listening to this week's episode of F.I.D.O Talk with Dave Thompson. If you would, please subscribe and review. It helps a lot. Share the word with your friends and family. Have them check it out and provide some feedback. We'd love to hear it. Check us out at barebonesleadership.com for the latest blog and different perspectives on everything leadership. Follow us on the gram and on our newly updated Facebook page. Share your comments, your thoughts, your reviews. Any and all feedback is always welcome. And don't forget, keep kicking those fucking doors in, and as always, F.I.D.O. I appreciate you guys listening. Take care, and see you next time.